So let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult chat. This is your host, The Occult View. What do I want to talk about? Where do I want to go with this? I was going to talk about one thing, but I changed my mind on that. I change my mind quite often. It's early in the morning. I'm feeling pretty good. Um, but let's have a little chat. There are a lot of murders that have been taking place, a lot of violence that have been taking place in the DC area here lately. And I want to say for the past 4, almost 5 years, there has been an increase in violence in the DC area. And in actuality, I want to even say is for the past 7 years, really and truthfully, there has been a lot of unprovoked violence and increase in violence in the DC DMV area. There was a story that recently really disturbed me that came across my feed, and it was about a 3-year-old little girl. Um, what's her name? I want to say the little girl's name. Let me find her name and let me say her name. Give me a second. 3-year-old little girl killed in DC. 3-year-old little girl killed in DC. What is this little girl's name? What's the little baby's name? I can't find her name. Tyah Settles, I believe that's her name. Tyah Settles, 3-year-old little girl. She was out 9 o'clock at night. She wasn't out. She was out, I'm assuming, with her parent or, a family member, whatever. She was sitting in her car seat in a car in Southeast DC, 9 o'clock at night, when a shootout broke out. And the bullets hit the car that she was in. And ultimately, that baby is no longer here with us. You know, I guess we can point the blame at the shooters. I mean, that would be the natural course of action to blame the shooters, of course. They should be blamed for this because they were the ones that took that baby out of this world. But I want to go behind the scenes and I really want to just examine what's really going on here in DC that nobody is really talking about. What's really taking place here? We have a mayor who's a Leo, Muriel Bowser, who is reckless, who is irresponsible, and she is up under. Well, I don't want to. Well, I don't know if I should say she's up under her, but she has the backing and support of Cora Masters Berry, Marion Barry's widow, not Christopher's mother. Let me just say that. And anyone that is backed up by that woman, I don't trust them. And Muriel Bowser has changed over the course of her tenure as mayor of DC. Muriel Bowser used to dress very professionally. She had a certain professionalism about herself. And most Leo women that I know, they are very, very particular about how they carry themselves, especially if they have a position such as mayor or some type of high profile position of that nature. When I look in Muriel Bowser's eyes, she looks as if she's been MK Ultra'd. There's nothing there. She looks as if she's up under some form of mind control. This is the same woman that refused to speak to the family members of three victims of violence, generational violence, in one family. Three of the sons were murdered due to DC violence, street violence. These three sons were murdered, and she refused to speak to the families. Now, granted, I understand that the mayor can't speak to every single family of crime victims. I get that, you know? But it was the way that she said she would not be speaking to them when a reporter asked her last week. When they asked her last week, Mayor Bowser, will you be speaking to such and such family? You know, the family of the three victims that were, victims of street violence. It was three brothers, and all of them were victims of street violence. And the way that she said no, the connotation in and of itself, and the context of how she said no, you should have saw the look in her eyes. You know why she said no? Because some kind of way, she and her and the people that she's putting in place in DC, they know exactly what's going on. They know why there's an increase in violent crimes. They know exactly who is flooding the streets with the drugs, with the guns, and they know that this is an orchestrated, calculated effort to push certain people out of DC. She knows exactly what she's doing. She knows exactly what's going on. That is why she said, that is why she has no emotion when it comes to, even when she spoke about Tyah Settles, the 3-year-old that I was just telling you about, even when she spoke about Tyah Settles, there was an apathy there. Muriel Bowser has an apathy when she speaks about these types of murders. Even when she was speaking of Tyah Settles, there was an apathy there. There was no compassion. There was no emotion. There was no passion there. It was almost as if she was reading from a script. She doesn't care. And I get it. She doesn't care. But who is backing her up? Who is backing up Muriel Bowser in DC to try to remove certain people out of the city? Because that crime took place in Southeast DC. And for those people who are familiar with the DC area, those of us who are Washingtonians, we know that Southeast DC is like it's like a war zone over there. I don't live in Southeast DC. I don't live anywhere near Southeast DC. Thank goodness. I live in the county part of DC, basically the suburbs. But that's, even that is becoming tainted because they're pushing a lot of the people out of DC and they're pushing them out here into the suburbs. So therefore, it's going to become a problem in the suburbs as well. So all of this criminal activity in DC, it is by design. It is by design. I saw the most this did not happen in DC, but I saw the most horrible story the other day where two dudes, they were black, they I believe they sexually assaulted a woman. And they were set to, if they had been convicted and got time and received time, they would have gotten 93 years. So the crime must have been pretty bad, but instead the judge gave them probation. And that girl and her family were devastated. They gave those two they only gave them probation for those violent crimes that they committed, those violent sex crimes that they committed against that young woman. And they were facing 93 years and they got no time. So that tells me a couple of things. Coming back to DC, that tells me a couple of things. Because Muriel Bowser keeps talking about, well, we as a community using, neurolinguistics, using neurolinguistics to try to manipulate people and put people up under hypnosis and mind control to try to convince people to go along with her, insane agenda. Well, we as a community, we must come together. No, we as a community must not come together. No, bitch. You and that police department that you pay so well, that incompetent DC police department where you have hired people that look like they just came straight out of an asylum. That is who needs to come together. The people that are paying you tax dollars, those are the people that need to come together and do something about the crime in DC. That's what you get paid for. You're talking about we as a community. There is no community in Southeast DC. And the person that tried to set up a community over there, the person that tried to make it a community, they took him out. And that was Christopher Berry. And I know some things about Muriel Bowser personally that Christopher told me that I'm not going to repeat on camera, child. Because he knew her. Why is Muriel Bowser pretending that she's not a lesbian? Not that it's any of my business, but I'm just asking a question. And the reason I'm asking that question is because it speaks volumes and it speaks to her deceptive, non integrity having ass. She has no integrity, she has no character. So, my question goes back to who is really financing Muriel Bowser? Because it's not the city council in DC. The city council in DC has been sabotaged. The DC government has been sabotaged and it has been infiltrated because I look at the police department. I look at the police force now that she has put in place. She put this police force in place. And I'm looking at the energy of these people, and these people look unqualified. They look mentally ill. They look like they can be on drugs, allegedly. They just don't look like they should be leading the city's law enforcements. And these are the people that she put in place. When they speak, there is no conviction. When they speak, there is no confidence. How can you talk about we the community, neurolinguistics once again, how can you talk about we the community need to come together when you keep letting out and you keep loosening up the laws for the very same people that are committing the crimes? Because I'm going to tell you something. If I had a child, for example, I'm going to be honest with you. Let's go back to the whole Sweetie Pies and Tim Norman situation. If I had a son or daughter, it doesn't matter what the gender is. If I had a son or daughter that was involved in any way with the unaliving of my grandchild, like Tim Norman was in regards to Andre Montgomery, his nephew. We all know the story. He had a life insurance policy on him, and he was responsible for setting up a hit to take Andre out. There is no way that my child will always be my child, but I would not have no child no more as far as spirit. I would not deal with my child ever again on any terms. I'm not saying that I wouldn't talk to him on the phone, but I would not deal with him because your child is going to always be your child. But if he took the life of my grandchild in a way like that, in something like that was calculated and orchestrated and done on purpose, and you think I'm going to be walking around talking about I'm going to stand by my son? No, I would not. Now, your child will always be your child, but that was a heinous crime that he committed. That was heinous. But she keeps talking about going back to Muriel Bowser. She keeps talking about we, the community, need to come together. No, how about you improve your police force? See, when they defunded, this is why a lot of people were against them defunding the police department because of shit like this. This is why people were against them defunding the police department, and so was I. Because there is this, how can I put it? There's this thinking mechanism or pattern of thinking that black people, simply because black people are looked at as an oppressed people, and people look at it as being, well, it's the inner city. They don't have hope. They don't have a lot of money. Let me tell you something. I didn't grow up with a lot of money either. And I grew up with very little hope either. Okay? My life was not some hunky dory life. I went through a lot of shit when I was a child. But it never occurred to me in my mind to go out or grow up to become a predator and start harming other people. Since when did gangs open fire? Well, bullets don't have no names on it, so I can't really say that because I really don't have all of the details. But the crime that's taking place in DC is not just about the people pulling the trigger, it's the people facilitating it behind the scenes. Muriel Bowser, let me get back on topic. Muriel Bowser and that administration in DC, they know exactly what's going on. They purposely defunded the police department because it's all an orchestrated, calculated plan to eradicate the citizens who live in Southeast DC. So they are flooding. It's almost like giving a drug addict their drug of choice. That's what it's almost like. Because they're trying to get rid of the people in Southeast DC. They want those people out of there. When you go to the National Harbor, MGM, the MGM casinos here in, I believe it's in Suitland, Maryland, all of that used to be apartments, houses where black people used to live. But they pushed those black people out so they could build that MGM casino resort, whatever hotels, whatever. And now that they've built that, it's nothing but a bunch of crime taking place down there too now. You can't even go to the casino at MGM Resort, because I like to go to the casino sometimes. You can't even go there because it's so much crime and ghetto activity. But all of these types of behaviors have been condoned for many, 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 many years. They've been condoned. So that's why when I see a mother who has a son and her son is in the house minding his business, I commend that mother. That lets you know that that mother did something right. But you have people who would prefer young black men to be out in the street. Oh, you know, if you want to be a man, you got to be out in the street killing people. Does that include little children too? Does that include little children too? Does it? Do they still have the three strikes you outlaw? Do they still have that? Maybe they need to bring that back under these current circumstances. And I'm normally not for that because that law really devastated the black community back in the day. But maybe they need to bring that back. Maybe they need to reinstate that or reinforce that law. Maybe they do. The three strikes you outlaw, maybe they need to reinforce that. And I don't give a fuck who gets offended by that because they're killing black babies now. They're killing black, but don't nobody really, we're so concerned about, well, we want to make sure that the criminal gets a fair trial. We want to make sure that the criminal is okay and that they feel like they got a fair trial and they got a fair chance to fight the charge. That's what we're more concerned about. They're more concerned about the criminals than they are the actual victims. Well, he grew up in a bad environment. He had a bad life. He had a hard life. So have I. So have so many people. But you expect us to keep on going along with this insanity. And then you got this bitch Muriel Bowser. Yes, I said bitch. You got this bitch Muriel Bowser who don't give a fuck about black children in DC. She don't give a fuck about black people in DC. She don't give a fuck about people in DC. And the white people that keep voting her in, white people, y'all need to stop voting her in because those same Negroes that you all move over there on Nevada Avenue and Connecticut Avenue and Wisconsin Avenue and Bethesda and all that, they're putting them over there too. They're coming over there too, committing crimes. It's all throughout the city. Nebraska Avenue, Wisconsin Avenue, Connecticut Avenue, what else? Nevada, I said Nevada Avenue, Bethesda, all of that area is upper class white area. And the reason that I know that is because I used to go to school over in that area. I went to school up the street off of what was that? Off of was that Nebraska? I think off of Nebraska Avenue, up there by Wilson and Deal and all of those other places. I went to school up there. So I know. Y'all keep voting her in, but this is a detriment to you as well. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just pointing it out. Because now her policies are affecting the white community as well. You all move out further for safety and for security, but those same Negroes, they coming into y'all community too, robbing, killing, and stealing as well. Yeah, I said it. And that's not racially insensitive. That's telling the truth. Are we supposed to be held hostage by these types of people? And let me say this to be clear. I don't care what race they are. They could be white, they could be Mexican, they could be whatever. And of course, there is an uptick in crimes involving the Mexican and the Latin community as well. There are a lot of MS-13 gangs and all that type of stuff in DC. So all of it is a collective effort. Do you notice they never catch Isn't it interesting? They used to catch criminals for the most part. When you committed crimes like the magnitude of the crime that they committed against that 3-year-old girl, when you used to commit crimes like that, there was no way you could get away with it. There was no way you could get away with it back then. But now, they never or they rarely solve any of these crimes. It's the same thing that happened to Alicia Rudd. They still don't know what happened to Alicia Rudd, and they still cannot, which I don't understand. It's been 11 years because she disappeared, no, 10 years, I believe. She disappeared either in 2013 or 2014, I can't remember. But they did a documentary on her disappearance about a month or two ago. And they still do not know for a fact if Relicia Rudd is even still alive or not. Because I believe there was some talking that they found some remains that had been burned to ashes that they believe was hers. But they never confirmed it. So here's my question. Is Muriel Bowser involved in child trafficking? Allegedly? Is she part of that energy? Allegedly? Allegedly? I'm going to say allegedly. Is she part of that energy? Who is Muriel Bowser? Who is this woman? Where did she come from? Because they always throw these people on us. They always, they shove these people down our throats and tell us, oh, this is the one that's going to bring change. Oh, fuck that shit. You can't bring no change to my life. Only I can do that. They always bring these weird people into our lives, these politicians. Oh, so vote for me and I'll set you free, right? Who is Muriel Bowser? Does she have a legacy in this town? Who is she really? I mean, really, who is she? And I'm not talking about hearsay, I'm talking about proof. Who is this woman? Does she have a pedigree? How did she get in place to become mayor? Oh, that's right, Cora Masters Barry, the mastermind. She helped her to get in the place that she's in now. I'm going to say it again. When Christopher Barry was alive, there was not a lot of crime in DC the way that it is now. When Marion Barry was alive, there was not a lot of crime in DC as it is now. It was crime, don't get me wrong. It was shit popping off, but it was more organized. It was more organized than this. And Christopher tried to fight against the crime. Right before he died, that's why I say he's a hero. He's a hero. Christopher Barry was a hero. He was a hero. Whenever I hear that song by Mariah Carey, then a hero comes along. I think about him. Whenever I think about that song, "The Wind Beneath My," what is this? What is it called? "The Wind Beneath My Wings" or something like that by Bette Midler. "You're the wind beneath my wings," something like that. Yeah, I think about him because in my mind he's a hero. Because what a lot of people don't remember, and I'm going to keep saying it, before he passed away, before Christopher passed away, there was a shootout in the Wellington Park apartment complex where he was living, where he should not have been living anyway. He should have been living in a mansion somewhere. He should have been living good. But the people that are supposed to live like that, they've relegated all of us to a certain way of life. And they've shut the doors and the opportunities and left those for the crazies, the ratchet, and the ghetto. But that's another story. There was a shootout, and there were some children or a child that was in the midst of gunfire. And Christopher, he saved that child in the midst of gunfire. He saved the children. He saved them. And that is why he will always have a special place in my heart. No matter what his difficulties were, he will always have a special place in my heart. Always. He was a hero. And they took him out for that. They take out people like that. So that is why I wonder sometimes, is Muriel Bowser connected to, just like the whole Pizzagate thing? You're the mayor of DC, and you expect me to believe that you didn't know about the Pizzagate allegations, allegedly? But then when you follow the pattern or you follow the code, Cora Masters Barry, she's connected to Hillary Clinton and the Clintons. She refers to Hillary Clinton as her sister. So what's that about? Why would the former first lady be friends with the former wife of a DC mayor? What would they have in common? Because normally those lines are not blurred like that. They're not intertwined. Why would Cora Masters, and let's bring in the spiritual side of it. Hillary Clinton is a Scorpio. Cora Masters Barry is a Taurus. The Scorpio is the darker side of the Taurus, and the Taurus is the darker side of the Scorpio. Bill Clinton is a Leo, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I think he's a Leo. Let me make sure. When was Bill Clinton born? August 19th. He's a Leo. He's a Leo. And when those three zodiac signs get together, the Scorpio, the Taurus, and the Leo, and then you got a Leo mayor, and see, they're operating at their lowest and their darkest because they're not for the better good. Wasn't Bill Clinton connected to Jeff Epstein stuff allegedly? Nickelodeon Island? Wasn't he connected to that energy? Now I know that Marion Barry, he did business with politicians, but I don't think he was friends with any of them. See, Cora Masters Barry, she's friends with them. She's positioned, has she's positioned herself. She's got in position, or she was put in position to destroy the Barry family and to destroy that legacy. She was put in place for that. And then she has that Southeast Tennis Center over there and Southeast for children. See, you gotta look at you gotta look at the dynamics of what's really going on. What's really going on? Because the energy is funny to me. Something ain't right in this pudding. Something is not right. Just like that song by Keith Sweat, something just ain't right. There's something not right. Then you have Cora Masters Berry on Facebook encouraging Black people to vote for Angela Also Brooks, who's running for U.S. Senate. I'm not voting for her. I'm not voting for her. I don't really vote anyway. That shit don't make no motherfucking difference. And I don't give a fuck who gets mad or not. I'm not, and if I was voting, I'm not voting for her. I would vote for Donald Trump first. Yeah, I said it. I would vote for Donald Trump first. I'm not a big Trump fan. But one thing about Donald Trump, He says what's on his mind. He means what the fuck he say, and he don't pussy pop and back. He don't pussy pop and backpedal. He's a Gemini. He a Gemini. Christopher was a Gemini too. And that was one thing about Christopher. He didn't pussy pop backpedal. What he said is what the fuck he said. When Christopher used to come over here and vent to me, I would let him vent. And I wouldn't say anything. I would just let him vent. I wouldn't say nothing. Let him vent. But all of these deceptive games and all of this, and that's just like when the news reporter asked Muriel Bowser, are you going to speak to the family of those three young male victims who were victims of street crimes? These were three brothers who all lost their life to violent DC street crimes. And when that reporter, going back to that, when that reporter asked Muriel Bowser, are you going to reach out to the families? No. And the reporter asked her, I think it was a white lady, she asked her, she said, is there a reason why? I've answered your question. Next question. She was very nasty. She was very hateful. And we accommodate this. We don't question this. We don't say anything about it. And then we wonder why this crime keeps taking place. But when I read the story about this young 3-year-old girl, Tyah Settles, that was murdered due to street violence, and then y'all got this bitch up here, Muriel Bowser. You got this bitch sitting up here with that type of fucking attitude, and y'all don't think that that's problematic in DC? Y'all don't think that's problematic? Now they're killing babies. This is a problem. They know what happened to Alicia Rudd. They know what happened to Alicia Rudd. They know what happened to her. You notice they don't talk about Pizzagate no more, right? You notice they don't talk about the alleged footage of Hillary Clinton along with another unnamed woman who was seen on film SAing a little girl. They don't talk about that no more. Now, I've never seen the footage, but there was some alleged footage that was floating around, and this is who Cora Mastersberry say is her sister. And then you got people in DC that I know calling Cora Mastersberry auntie. Yeah, we at auntie's house. Really? I know a lot of stuff about her too that Christopher's told me that I have not even put out. That I haven't even put out. And what's so interesting is I never really had any I never really had any ambitions to be involved in anything like this. It wasn't until I met Christopher that I began to see things. I never had any ambitions or any motivations to even care about political things going on in DC. I didn't care anything about that. But when I got involved with him and I became close to him and I saw what it was doing to him and how much I felt for him, that is when I said, these some dirty ass motherfucking people. So that is why I say all the time, you can't always blame white people for everything. Everything ain't got a white hand to it. Everything ain't got a white face behind it. Some of the shit that's going on, a lot of the shit that's going on in DC, it ain't got nothing to do with white people. Most of it. Some of it is a collective effort. It ain't got nothing to do with race. Maybe some of it does. But a large part of it has to do with power and money and greed. Y'all don't think that 3-year-old little girl, y'all don't think that that was a sacrifice of some sort. And I don't mean sacrifice in the conspiracy theory way. I mean sacrifice. I mean sacrifice. I'm just following the pattern. I knew, I'm going to tell you something. I knew, I knew it was going to be a problem with DC when they voted Muriel Bowser in. I knew DC and the country in general was going downhill in 2017 when they had that march on DC to oppose President Trump at the time. That I think it was a woman's march or something. I knew then that that march was going to bring in something that was not going to be what they told us it was going to be about. Maybe that sounded convoluted. What I'm saying is the result of that march was not the results that people were expecting. That march in 2017, it brought in a whole different vibration. It was not about, let me say it this way, it was not about protecting women and promoting women. It was about promoting an agenda. An underhanded agenda. And Cora Masters Berry was a part of that. Just like she's connected to a lot of the Black Lives Matter people that hijacked the Black Lives Matter movement. She's connected to a lot of them too. And I'm willing to bet so is Muriel Bowser behind the scenes. And you notice you don't see any of those people like the Tamika Mallories or any of them anymore when all of this crime is going on in DC, right? All of these black people killing other black people in DC, you don't see Black Lives Matter out there comforting people, reassuring the black people. You don't see them doing that. Well, that's right. Black Lives Matter was exposed for being a fake, fraudulent group, which I always knew that it was anyway. Spirit told me because I'm spiritually led. I'm not led by the flesh. Well, sometimes I'm led by the flesh when I want me a fine man child, but spirit led me. Spirit says something ain't right with that group, seer. Something ain't right with that group. And I kept saying to my spirit, no, ain't no buts. Something ain't right in that pudding. Something ain't right in that potato salad. Something ain't right. And then come to find out they were stealing the money. And then what made it even worse, they were not even American. They were third world black people. And then we have all of these horrible things that have been taking place ever since, go back to 2017 and just look at the timeline of things that have taken place and look at how DC has changed. They took the spirit out of DC, and I've said that before. They've taken the spirit and the soul out of DC, and they've replaced it with artificial shit, with an energy of murder, mayhem, despair, and criminal activity. That is why you have to create your own heaven on earth. You can't depend on people to do that. And most people understand that watch me, that are in this spiritual game. They understand that. But that's for those in the back. You see the spell work in all of this? You see the spell work and the manipulation that's going on? I remember when I was researching some stuff online a couple of years ago, I came across a hate group, a racist hate group that was targeting my friend Christopher Barry. A lot of people don't know this. But what was interesting about the hate group, they were targeting Christopher. It was, let me just say this, it was an alleged white hate group. Alleged. It was a hate group, a website that was targeting him, my friend Christopher. And see, this is how people do work on people spiritually, and you don't even know it. They were targeting him. They had a whole hate website dedicated to targeting my friend Christopher. Right? Of course, I took down the names of the people who were commenting in that hate group. Of course, I took down their names. I did, because my reach is very far. And of course, I did my work on them. I did. But what was interesting is that they mentioned Cora in one of their chats, but nobody said anything derogatory about her. Now, if this is a white racist hate group online targeting Christopher, why wouldn't they target Cora? Because Cora is more melanated than Christopher. Because Christopher was not, contrary to what you all believe or know, Christopher was not all the way black. He was 25% white because his mother was half white. His mother's father was Italian. So Christopher was part Italian. But they were only targeting him and his father. They weren't targeting Cora, but she was mentioned, but they didn't say anything derogatory about her. I find that interesting. So it goes back to who is really financing the downfall of the black people, and not just the black people, but the original people of DC, even some of the white ones. Who's financing it? Who's really financing Muriel Bowser? Because let me tell you all something. She is not motivated by the people. She is not for the people. The people and the city council, she does not follow those guidelines. She's being financed by someone else. Oh, and lastly, let me say this. When I was talking about that guy, Tony, who murdered Asia McGowan, Tony was also a Christian. I forgot to mention that. Not only was he a conspiracy theorist, he was also a Christian. He was a Christian. I just wanted to throw that out there. I forgot to mention that in that video. So who's financing Muriel Bowser? Who's financing Cora Masters Berry? Why would a woman like Felicia Rashad be hanging around a woman like Cora Masters Berry, a woman of her stature? Why would Felicia Rashad be hanging with that bitch? A low class bitch like that, who actively tried to destroy Marion Barry's marriage to Effie. Why would you be hanging around somebody like that? See, that's where it starts. She ain't none of my motherfucking auntie. How come Cora Masters Berry never speaks about the violence that's going on in Southeast DC? where she lives, over there on Raleigh Street. How come she never talks about the violence and the murders that go on in DC? How come she's silent about that? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? I'm just asking questions. Don't get mad at me. I just want to know. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. Anyway, I think I've talked enough. This is the occult view. You know, it's so much going on. It just doesn't make it makes sense, but then it doesn't make sense. People are put in place for certain reasons. Anyway, that's all I have to say.